What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness through pop culture. My name's Captain Nostalgia. I'm a writer, podcaster, and the director of our film festival, Horrific Hope. If you guys would like to submit your films, screenplays, and short films or features to our film festival for next year, links are in the descriptions below. And if you would also like to sponsor it, there's also a link in the description below as well. You'll also be able to find links to our podcast, Patreon, and more movie reviews like this, but most importantly, our mental health resource library. And it feels weird to say this, but today we're going to be talking about Black Adam. It's 15 years in the making, and I remember when this initially got announced, I was like on the weird high of Batman Begins because The Dark Knight hadn't come out yet. And so, this just feels really kind of surreal, in all honesty. It's been a long time since I've talked about or addressed any superhero content, thanks to our Marvel guys, Josh and Alan. They're doing a great job. If you guys haven't checked out any of our Marvel content recently, go check it out because they are killing it. Brock plays our titular anti-hero who awakens after a 5,000-year coma, only to kind of find himself in modern-day Kadak, where he originally is from, and also is kind of facing off against the Justice Society and also trying to stop a 5,000-year curse from coming to fruition. I know a lot of us have probably heard by now that this movie is getting mixed responses from the critics, and I try not to bring in critical reception when I'm kind of doing my own analyzation of a film, but this movie, to say the least, is kind of messy. Kind of heard me talk about when I was giving my synopsis. This movie has two plot lines that run parallel to each other, and they end up tying up nicely in the end. I will say that. However, the road to get to that journey it's muddy. Also feels generic, but it feels generic in the way that it's forgettable but fun, but also at the same time it kind of cherry picks things from other franchises. Like the first act of this movie, as they're kind of setting up the whole Crown subplot, feels like it's taken directly from a Tomb Raider or Indiana Jones. Technology in this movie feels very much like how the Wakandans in Black Panther use vibranium. The way the Justice Society is positioned in this movie kind of feels like the way that David Ayer assembled his Suicide Squad a few years ago. And it just kind of makes for some really messy transitions. Like, there's a point in the third act of the film, once you kind of feel like the film is kind of over, and it's like, nope, we have one final battle left in us, and that final battle feels so incredibly forced. In that final battle, there is a character that makes a decision that kind of just feels really out of left field. I guess you can kind of make the argument that it doesn't feel that way, but to me, it just kind of felt like it just felt empty because that character in particular hadn't really been developed enough to kind of make the decision that he made. And I think that's kind of one of the things that this movie also has set against it, is how many characters it constantly has going for it. I understand for years we've been hearing The Rock is going to be changing the hierarchy of the DCEU. This movie certainly doesn't do that, but throwing in the Justice Society, it does build nicely for world building, and it's not terrible the way that it world builds. But for one movie that mostly takes place within one location, this movie just kind of feels overstuffed and over bloated at points. That's not to say that I didn't have a really fun time with this movie. I tend to have a lot of fun with DC movies more than I do Marvel movies. That's just my personal preference, and I know there's probably going to be people in the comments telling me that I am crazy for that. That's fine. That's fine. You like what you like. I grew up on DC. DC was the first comics I picked up. It's the first comics that I had subscriptions for. They're just kind of, you know, they're it for me. And likewise, I've had a lot of fun with the DC movies that have been made over the last few years. Like, don't get me wrong, there are definitely weak spots, as I previously mentioned with Suicide Squad, that is... we don't talk about it, and I'm still holding out hope for the Ayer cut, but it's probably the lowest point the DCEU has gotten. And I'm an apologist for Zack Snyder, so the fact that this movie feels like a Snyder, yeah, this feels like a win. I'll probably do an entire separate video on why I love the Man of Steel, BVS, Zack Snyder's Justice League, etc. In fact, we did an entire series about it last year called Road to Snyder Cut. I'll provide a link in the descriptions below where you guys can check out those podcasts. But I think getting back to Black Adam feels like a return to form for the Snyderverse. It's like this signature slow motion for not only Black Adam, but the Cyclone character as well. It has the big theatrical explosions and kind of things, that the mannerisms that you usually normally see in Zack Snyder movies. I think this film feels like a perfect companion piece to that, and it's the first film in the DCEU that feels like a Snyder movie without actually being a Snyder movie. The fact that this is a passion project for The Rock, and The Rock understood what the fans wanted. Please stay tuned afterwards for the post-credits scene. Let me just say that The Rock understands the fans, and this is not only a passion project for him, but this is a fan-driven experience, because he kind of watched everyone kind of look at things that were working and things about the Snyderverse that people liked, and kind of hand-delivered all of that in a 2-hour blockbuster for the DCEU in Black Adam. And I think the majority of people are going to be coming to see this out of one of two things. They're going to either come to see this out of pure curiosity because of how long this film took to get made, or two, they're coming for The Rock. I really love The Rock in this movie. I love the character journey of the hero, of him kind of becoming this I'm not a hero, I'm unworthy kind of attitude, mentality, to kind of be embracing the anti-hero isms that is Black Adam. Some movies laid on thick with the role of kind of like defining the hero, and this movie lays it on very thick. Adam is not a hero, he's not a villain, he's an anti-hero. I think they laid that on so thick without actually saying the words anti-hero, that by the time you it's like one of those like drinking games, like take a shot every time The Rock says I'm not a hero. Aldris Hodge is another reason to check out this movie. I loved his portrayal of Hawkman. I think that it was just him and The Rock's back and forth I thought was incredible. I really liked what he brought to the character, and just the gravity of conviction, and just I want a Hawkman movie after coming out of this movie because of Hodge in this role. I'm excited when they announced him because I really loved him in Straight Outta Compton. I really loved him in The Invisible Man. So kind of to get to see him in this role, I think was just a wonderful experience, and he's truly exceptional in this role. It's another good one to talk about as well. The movie doesn't really give him a whole lot to do. He's kind of like the equivalency of like a weathered superhero, similarly to how we got to see Ben Affleck a few years ago in the Batman role. Unlike Affleck, though, there's not a whole lot for him to do, and this just kind of seems like a missed opportunity. I was really looking forward to getting to see his take on the character, and while I think there are good scenes with his character in it, it just kind of seems like a waste of talent. So a weird subplot with like The Rock having like a kid admirer that feels very reminiscent of the Freddy character from Shazam. Could have done without that. The actors in this movie, I mean, there's not a whole lot, but there is a significant amount. They do a fine job, and I will say that, you know, I'm intrigued by characters like Cyclone and Atom Smasher, and really want to see them kind of expand the lore on these. I really hope that this isn't the last time we get to see the Justice Society. So let's run this through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Black Adam a 3.5 out of 5. I feel like this movie makes a lot of mistakes, but it's one of those movies that is just a popcorn movie, and I really admired that. And I thought that the hero's journey is just really well done. The Rock is exceptional. Aldris Hodge is incredible in this movie. Pacing is kind of weird, kind of some of the narrative choices kind of all over the place, but all in all, it's a fun time, and it's a return to form for those of us like myself that are excited to kind of experience a Zack Snyder movie, kind of recapture the Snyderverse glory. If you guys are new to our channel, we take mental health moments where we take a mental health theme throughout the film which we're reviewing and talk about it for just a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. I want to talk about the Noah Centineo character of Atom Smasher. It specifically kind of lay this up in terms of this character is that this is the second Atom Smasher. His uncle was the first one, and this is kind of his first outing as a hero. Otherwise, I think you can also bring Cyclone into this conversation, played by Quintessa Swindle. The reason that I bring up these two characters in particular is because they have what I would dare say big shoes to fill. There is this expectation for them. I've talked about it in the past with generational expectations, and kind of I feel like also too, maybe even when you get a promotion like it would be in this case, you have those expectations. And let me just tell you something, that those expectations really mess with your mental health. I recently at my day job just got a promotion, and I can't even begin to kind of talk about how much that has kind of affected my mental health to a point where I've had to like define lines in the sand and like kind of have conversations with, you know, my boss about expectations and kind of like understand that I'm doing the best I can and that's okay. The reason that I bring up the Atom Smasher character is because he's living up to the expectation of his uncle, who was the first Atom Smasher, and so you have this generational expectation, but also at the same time you have this superhero expectation that because it runs in the family, you are expected to be great. I think that really honestly has an impact on mental health that we just don't talk about enough. We need to dare to be vulnerable and kind of talk about the expectations that and how they're affecting our own mental health, because unless we actually speak up and say something, then at the end of the day, no one actually knows that we're hurting or crying out for help. I hope that this is an encouragement to you guys, and like always, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, click the links in the descriptions below to check out our mental health resource library. Black Adam is now playing in theaters everywhere. If you guys have seen Black Adam, what did you guys think? Comment below and let me know. Make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button and have a great night.